Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at Eastward Ho by Marston, Jonson and Chapman. Not necessarily in that order. It's been a really engaging 2 sessions so far. Lots of ups and downs and questions and issues and confusions and then clarifications, and hopefully there'll be more of that today. We've got a bit more text to cram in today, but hopefully we'll be able to keep the conversation flowing. Reading today as we continue. I don't know how damp some people are in this session or not. I think Touchstone is still quite dry. Reading Touchstone today is
Sarah Blake, actor, writer and director based in Germany.
Reading Golding today is
Alan in Suffolk.
Reading Gertrude and Security is
Aliki in Athens.
Reading Sindefy and First Prisoner is
Lynn in the northwestern United States.
Reading Mistress, Touchstone and Bramble is
Elizabeth Amisu, based in the southeast of England.
Reading Quicksilver is
I'm Alex and I'm in Highland, Perthshire.
Reading The Constable as well as Wolf and Second Prisoner is
Lois in London.
Reading Mildred, Holdfast and Friend is
Julie Hoverson here in Seattle.
And reading Sir Petronel Flash is
Hi, I'm Eric. I don't know what my hair is doing, but then again, I don't know what the rest of me is doing either, so it's fun.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I will be reading stage directions and keeping us moving generally forward. So, without further ado, Act 4, Scene 2, enter Touchstone.
Ah, Sarah, thinks my knight adventurer we can know point of our compass? Do we not know nor northeast, northeast and by east, east and by north, nor plain eastward? Ah, have we never heard of Virginia, nor the Cavalleria, nor the Colonoria? Can we discover no discoveries? Well, mine errant's a flash and my runagate Quicksilver. You may drink drunk, crack cans, hurl away a brown dozen of Monmouth caps or so in sea ceremony to your bon voyage. Before you reaching any coast save the coast of Kent or Essex with this tide or with this fleet, I'll be your warrant for a Gravesend toast. There's that gone before will stay your admiral and vice admiral and rear admiral, were they all as they are but one pinnace, and under sail as well as a remora, doubt it not, and from this sconce without either powder or shot. Work upon that now. Nay, and you'll show tricks, will vie with you a little. My daughter, his lady, was sent eastward by land to a castle of his in the air, in what region I know not, and, as I hear, was glad to take up her lodging in her coach, she and her 2 waiting women, her maid and her mother, like 3 snails in a shell, and the coachman atop of them, I think. Since they have all found their way back by Weeping Cross, but I'll not see 'em. And for 2 on 'em, Madam and her Malkin, they are like to bite of the bridle for William, as the poor horses have done all this while that hurried 'em, or else go graze o' the common. So should my Dame Touchstone too. But she has been my cross these 30 years, and I'll now keep her to fright away sprites, i' faith. I wonder I hear no news of my son Golding. He was sent for to the Guildhall this morning betimes, and I marvel at the matter. If I had not laid up comfort and hope in him, I should grow desperate of all. See, he is come in my thought. How now, son? What news at the court of Alderman?
Enter Golding.
Oh, sir, an accident somewhat strange. I think it had little else in it worth the reporting.
What, is it not borrowing of money then?
No, sir. It hath pleased the worshipful commoners of the city to take me, one of their number, at a presentation of the inquest,
Ah,
and the alderman of the ward wherein I dwell to appoint me his deputy,
how?
in which place I have had an oath administered me since I went.
Now, my dear and happy son, let me kiss thy new worship, and a little boast mine own happiness in thee. What a fortune was it, or rather my judgment indeed, for me first to see that in his disposition, which a whole city so conspires to second, ta'en into the livery of his company the first day of his freedom, now not a week married, chosen commoner and alderman's deputy in a day. Note but the reward of a thrifty course. The wonder of his time. Well, I will honour Master Alderman for this act, as becomes me, and shall think the better of the Commons Council's wisdom and worship while I live for thus meeting, or but coming after me, in the opinion of his desert. Forward, my sufficient son. And as this is the first, so esteem it the least step to that high and prime honour that expects thee.
Sir, I was not ambitious of this, so I covet no higher place. Doth dignity enough, all but save me from contempt. And I'd rather my bearing in this or any other office should add worth to it than the place give the least opinion to me.
Excellently spoken. This modest answer of thine blushes, as if it said, I will wear scarlet shortly. Worshipful son, I cannot contain myself. I must tell thee, I hope to see thee one of the monuments of our city, and reckon among her worthies, to be remembered the same day with Lady Ramsay and grave Gresham, when the famous fable of Whittington and his puss shall be forgotten, and thou and thy acts become the posies for hospitals, when thy name shall be written upon conduits, and thy deeds played in thy lifetime by the companies of actors, and be called their Gepney. This I divine, this I prophesy.
Sir, engage not your expectation farther than my abilities will answer. I, that know mine own strengths, fear 'em, and there is so seldom a loss in promising the least, that commonly it brings with it a welcome deceit. I have other news for you, sir.
None more welcome, I am sure.
They have their degrees of welcome, I dare affirm. The Colonel and all his company this morning putting forth drunk from Billingsgate had like to have been cast away on this side of Greenwich, and, as I have intelligence by a false brother, are dropping to town, like so many maskless men in their doublets and hose, without hat or cloak or any other.
Ah, miracle! The justice of heaven! Where are they? Let's go presently and lay for 'em.
I've done that already, sir, both by constables and other officers. We shall take 'em at their old anchor, and with less tumult or suspicion than if you yourself were seen in it. And under colour of the great press that is now abroad, they shall be here brought before me.
Prudent and politic son! Disgrace 'em all that ever thou canst. Their ship I have already arrested. How to my wish it falls out that thou hast the place of a justicer upon 'em. I am partly glad of the injury done to me, that thou mayst punish it. Be severe in thy place, like a new officer of the first quarter, unreflected. You hear how our lady has come back with her train from the invisible castle?
No? Where is she?
Within, but I had not seen her yet, nor her mother, who now begins to wish her daughter undubbed, they say, and that she had walked a foot-pace with her sister. Here they come. Stand back.
Enter Mistress Touchstone, Gertrude, Mildred, and Sindefy.
God save your ladyship. Save your good ladyship. Your ladyship is welcome from your enchanted castle. So are your beauteous retinue. I hear your knight errant is travelled on strange adventures. Surely, in my mind, your ladyship hath fished fair and caught a frog, as the saying is.
Speak to your father, madam, and kneel down.
Kneel? I hope I am not brought so low yet. Though my knight be run away and has sold my land, I am a lady still.
Your ladyship says true, madam, and it is fitter and a greater decorum that I should curtsy to you that are a knight's wife and a lady, than you be brought on your knees to me, who am but a poor cullion, and your father.
Law, my father knows his duty.
Oh, child.
Therefore, I do desire your ladyship, my good Lady Flash, in all humility, to depart my obscure cottage and return in quest of your bright and most transparent castle, however presently concealed to mortal eyes. And as for one poor woman of your train here, I will take that order. She shall no longer be a charge unto you, nor help to spend your ladyship. She shall stay at home with me and not go abroad, nor put you to the pawning of an odd coach horse or 3 wheels, but take part with the Touchstone. If we lack, we will not complain to your ladyship. And so, good madam, with your damosel here, please you to let us see your straight backs in equipage. For truly here is no roost for such chickens as you are, or birds of your feather, if it like your ladyship.
Marry, fist of your kindness. I thought as much. Come away, Sin. We shall as soon get a fart from a dead man as a farthing of courtesy here.
Oh, good sister.
Sister, Sir Reverence. Come away, I say. Hunger drops out at his nose.
Oh, madam, fair words never hurt the tongue.
How say you, my lad? You come out with your gold ends now.
Stay, lady daughter. Good husband.
Wife, no man loves his fetters, be they made of gold. I list not her my head fastened under my child's girdle. As she is brood, so let her drink a God's name. She went witless to wedding, now she may go wisely a begging. It's but honeymoon yet with her ladyship. She has coach horses, apparel, jewels yet left. She needs care for no friends, nor take knowledge of father, mother, brother, sister, or anybody. When those are pawned or spent, perhaps we shall return into the list of her acquaintance.
I scorn it. I'faith. Come, Sin.
Oh, madam, why do you provoke your father thus?
Exeunt Gertrude and Sindefy.
Nay, nay, e'en let pride go afore. Shame will follow after, I warrant you. Why dost thou weep now? Thou art not the first good cow hast had an ill calf, I trust.
And we're going to pause there before we have the entrance of an alternative plot line. Yes, we've got quite a few words here. There's a lot of words here. I suspect that in performing it, we choose the ones we like. There's a lot of good words here. I did quite like when Golding comes in and Touchstone just goes, "Oh, you're going up in the world. My investment has paid off." And then the extravagant sarcasm that he indulges in upon the return of his daughter and wife. It's all a little excessive, but I feel a reasonable trim will make that more manageable. Alan.
I must admit, I fight fairly strongly for the Sarky bit because I felt it worked extremely well.
Is there dissent on that point in the room? I may or may not have evidence for that, according to the chat. Lynn, would you like to step in?
It just went on a little long. Gertrude does deserve to be taken down a peg. She demonstrated some very poor judgment and some very questionable values, and her father told her so before. And I think it's reasonable for him to say, okay, you still have valuable property. Once you sell that and decide to humble yourself and sort of live appropriately, we can work out a rapprochement. But I just feel like it goes on really unnecessarily long. It just gets cruel.
Lois, then Sarah.
Yeah, well, we've had her saying, "I must be a lady," and now he's really picking up on that, your ladyship. But she doesn't still have valuable property. Sir Petronel got her to sign it all away to security.
Well, not real property, but she's got her coach and her jewels and expensive clothes she can pawn.
Yeah. Sarah.
Yeah, I'm with Lynn. I feel this I just felt it was a bit much. I mean, I was kind of wading through that text, and I know Touchstone was wordy in the first half of the play, but this seemed to be a different kind of wordiness. I thought, when Lynn said he was being cruel, he was really kind of over egging the pudding there. I felt, for his own apparent malicious glee, and that's just not who that's not how I read him in the first half of the play. He was dry and laconic and sort of prone to sort of eye rolls, but he wasn't this malicious. I don't think. He seemed like a fairly reasonable man, and this to me just was when there was just a little bit too much of it. So I'd be definitely tempted to go. And again, I think it's probably we've had another change of author, maybe, because he just does seem like a different person to who he was earlier.
He hasn't said work upon that now once.
He did. He said it. He did. He said it once.
He said it once.
Right at the very beginning. Yeah, but you did, and the reason you missed it was because I said it in a weird way. Because actually, it was like someone had just shoved it in. Someone had just remembered that it was his catchphrase and shoved it in. Whereas in the first half, it was very much part of a flowing dialogue.
Well, he always put it at the end of a speech. That's why I didn't notice, because I was just scanning through to see because that's where he says it. He doesn't say it in the middle of a speech. He says he says something wise, or what he thinks is wise, and then he says,
and then it was just kind of
speech. It doesn't work.
Yeah, it was just kind of stuffed in, and I get the impression that's a different author who's like, oh yeah, he has that little catchphrase. I better put it in here.
Anyway, Lynn, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, and just something else I kind of want to meditate on is, and I don't know if I want to characterize this as an inconsistency in Touchstone's character or what to make of it. But in his conversation with his son-in-law, it's like, oh, you've been so successful, you're influential now, you've got these prestigious positions in the city. You're going to be famous. They're gonna portray you on stage and stuff like that. And Golding keeps saying, I just want to do the best I can. And I just want to, play my part and be a good citizen and kind of, make the world a better place, or is sort of the subtext there, I think. And so it's like Golding kind of gets it, and Touchstone has lost track of he's lost the thread of what he sort of has lost track of the values that he seemed to represent in the first scene, where
he's sort of become his wife, with Golding as his surrogate son, in that sense.
It's like fame and stuff is what counts, not just knowing your place and doing your best.
Go to Lois, and then we will move on.
Yeah. I mean, I think Touchstone is to some extent indulging in deliberate hyperbole here. The other thing is just that the audience would have known that this is all completely unbelievable. I mean, nobody ever rose as rapidly in a company as Golding has just done. This is one of these, success stories. It's, Touchstone said at the beginning, let's see which of these two marriages works out best. And then we're just getting a completely hyperbolic rise to success, fame, fortune of the good apprentice. Normally, it took years to get to the point that Golding got to on the first day of his coming out of his apprenticeship, and a week later, getting more distinguished appointments. So, in a way, for Touchstone to go on saying, "And you'll be as famous as Dick Whittington," and so on, it's just kind of carrying on this absurd trajectory.
But if we think of it as a morality play, in a sense, this is the climax of the morality play that was set up at the beginning. The virtuous one has suddenly risen very high, and the one who was chasing after other fun things has been brought low. And if it was a morality play, would have someone come on, say a prayer to God, and wish the health of the king. We don't have that. We have more play to do, which we must get on with. So enter a plot strand. Enter Constable. Oh, Touchstone speaks to welcome them.
Is that where we left off?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's precisely where we left off.
Oh, in the middle of your line, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before the entrance of the next bit of business.
Yeah. Sorry. What's the news with that fellow?
The knight and your man Quicksilver are without. Will you have them brought in?
Oh, by any means.
Exit Constable.
And son, here's a chair. appear terrible unto him on the first interview. Let them behold the melancholy of a magistrate and taste the fury of a citizen in office.
Why, sir, I can do nothing to him except you charge him with somewhat.
I will charge him and recharge him, rather than authority should want foil to set it off.
No, good sir, I will not.
Son, it is your place, by any means.
Believe it, I will not, sir.
Enter Sir Petronel, Quicksilver, Constable, officers.
How misfortune pursues us still in our misery.
Would it have been my fortune to have been trussed up at Wapping rather than ever have come here?
Or mine to have famished in the island.
Must Goldings sit upon us?
You might carry an M under your girdle to Master Deputy's worship.
What are those, Master Constable?
And please your worship, a couple of masterless men I pressed for the Low Countries, sir.
Why do you not carry them to Bridewell according to your order? They may be shipped away.
And please your worship, one of them says he is a knight, and we thought good to show him to your worship for our discharge.
Which is he?
This, sir.
And what's the other?
A knight's fellow, sir, and please you.
What, a knight's fellow thus accoutred? Where are their hats and feathers, their rapiers and their cloaks?
Oh, they mock us.
Nay, truly, sir. They'd cast both their feathers and hats, too, before we see him. Here is all their furniture, and please you, that we found. They say knights are now to be known without feathers, like cockerels by their spurs, sir.
What are their names, say they?
Very well, this. He should not take knowledge of him in his place, indeed.
This is Sir Petronel Flash.
How?
And this, Francis Quicksilver.
Is't possible? I thought your worship had been gone for Virginia. Sir, you are welcome home, sir. Your worship has made a quick return, it seems, and no doubt a good voyage. Nay, pray you be covered, sir. How did your biscuit hold out, sir? Methought I had seen this gentleman afore. Good Master Quicksilver. How a degree to the southward has changed you.
You know 'em, father. But bear your offers a little. You shall be heard anon.
Yes, Master Deputy. I had a small venture with them in the voyage, a thing called a son-in-law or so. Officers, you may let him stand alone. They will not run away. I'll give my word for them. A couple of very honest gentlemen. One of them was my apprentice, Master Quicksilver here. And when he had 2 year to serve, kept his whore and his hunting nag, would play his £100 at Gresco or Primero as familiarly and all of my purse as any bright piece of crimson on 'em all. Had his changeable trunks of apparel standing at livery with his mare, his chest of perfumed linen, and his bathing tubs, which, when I told him of, why, he was a gentleman, and I a poor cheap-side groom. The remedy was we must part, since when he hath had the gift of gathering up some small parcels of mine to the value of £500 dispersed among my customers to furnish this his Virginia venture, wherein this knight was the chief. Sir Flash, one that married a daughter of mine, ladyfied her, turned £2,000 worth of good land of hers into cash within the first week, bought her a new gown and a coach, sent her to seek her fortune by land, whilst himself prepared for his fortune by sea, took in fresh flesh at Billingsgate for his own diet to serve him the whole voyage, the wife of a certain usurer called Security, who hath been the broker for him in all this business. Please, Master Deputy, work upon that now.
If my worshipful father have ended,
I have, it shall please, Master Deputy.
well then, under correction.
Now, son, come over him with some fine gird as thus. Knight, you shall be encountered, that is, add to the counter, or Quicksilver, I will put you into a crucible, or so.
Sir Petronel Flash, I'm sorry to see such flashes as these proceed from a gentleman of your quality and rank. For mine own part, I could wish I could say I could not see them. But such is the misery of magistrates and men in place, that they must not wink at offenders. Take him aside, I'll hear you anon, sir.
Oh, I like this well. There's some grace in the night left, he cries.
Francis Quicksilver, would God thou hadst turned Quicksilver rather than run into these dissolute and lewd courses. It is a great pity thou art a proper young man, of an honest and clean face, somewhat near a good one. God hath done his part in thee, but thou hast made too much, and been too proud of that face, the rest of thy body, for maintenance of which in neat and garish attire, only to be looked upon by some light housewives, thou hast prodigally consumed much of thy master's estate, and being by him gently admonished at several times, hast returned thyself haughty and rebellious in thine answers, thundering out uncivil comparisons, requiting all his kindness with a coarse and harsh behaviour, never returning thanks for any one benefit, but receiving all as if they had been debts to thee, and no courtesies. I must tell thee, Francis, these are manifest signs of an ill nature. God doth often punish such pride and outrecuidance with scorn and infamy, which is the worst of misfortune. My worshipful father, what do you please to charge them withal? From the press will I free them, Master Constable?
Then I'll leave your worship, sir.
No, you may stay. There will be other matters against them.
Sir, I do charge this gallant Master Quicksilver on suspicion of felony, and the knight as being an accessory in the receipt of my goods.
Oh, God, sir.
Hold thy peace, impudent varlet. Hold thy peace. With what forehead or face dost thou offer to chop logic with me, having run such a race of riot as thou hast done? Does not the sight of this worshipful man's fortune and temper confound thee, that was thy younger fellow in household, and now come to have the place of a judge upon thee? Dost not observe this? Which of all the gallants and gamesters, thy swearers and thy swaggerers, will come now to moan thy misfortune or pity thy penury? They'll look out at a window as thou ridest in triumph to Tyburn, and cry, "Yonder goes honest Frank, mad Quicksilver. He was a freeboon companion when he had money," says one. "Hang him, fool," says another. "He could not keep it when he had it." "A pox of the cullion his master," says a third. He has brought him to this, when their pox of pleasure and their piles of perdition would have been better bestowed upon thee that hast ventured for him with the best, and by the clue of thy knavery brought thyself weeping to the cart of calamity.
Worshipful master.
Offer not to speak, crocodile. I will not hear a sound come from thee. Thou hast learnt to whine at the play yonder. Master Deputy, pray you commit 'em both to safe custody, till I be able, father, to charge 'em.
Oh, me. What an unfortunate thing am I.
Will you not take security, sir?
Yes, marry, will I, Sir Flash, if I can find him, and charge him as deep as the best on you. He has been the plotter of all this. He is your engineer, I hear. Master Deputy, you'll dispose of these. In the meantime, I'll to my Lord Mayor and get his warrant to seize that serpent security into my hands, seal up both house and goods to the king's use or my satisfaction.
Officers, take him to the counter.
Oh, God.
Nay, on. You see the issue of your sloth. Of sloth cometh pleasure, of pleasure cometh riot, of riot comes whoring, of whoring comes spending, of spending comes want, of want comes theft, of theft comes hanging. And there my Quicksilver is fixed.
And they exit with the catchphrase of, I'm sure we've had that before, that progression before. Was it all for money? I'm sure we've had pretty much that similar logic of this leads to this and this leads to that, and that's the house that Jack built. It's interesting. I'm really interested in the shape of this act overall. Just to cast our minds back to the previous session when we did the beginning of Act 4, because each of the acts are self-contained units as well as moving the plot forward. So last act we had the sort of slit gut narrating everyone coming out of the water. We had the resolution to a degree of the security and Winifred plot. And now we have the sort of consequences, ongoing consequences for Quicksilver et al. Here, so it has a nice shape to it. I mean, it's not a resolution, of course. It is a complication, and then giving the sort of the narrative a kick up the backside in the sense of it's upping the stakes a bit. Though I think we can all agree that a trim here and there would be good to keep the momentum in this scene, because there are a lot of words. There are a lot of words there. Elizabeth.
Yeah, just thinking about what you said, like when you trim this down, you have to be very careful, because I think some of the humor of Touchstone is the fact that he talks so much. I love the line where he says, "Hold thy peace, impudent Violet, hold thy peace." And he just waxes lyrical forever. It doesn't let Quicksilver say 3 words. And he just goes on and on and on. I just feel like when you trim it down, you have to make sure the Touchstone still speaks a lot, because that's kind of his character.
And it's a balancing between how fast the actor is going to do Touchstone, and how long, therefore, how much time that fills, and how much content there is in there. I think there's a lot to play around with that to get the balance right there. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, something I've noted in drama of the period is there is a kind of set piece for foolish justices, long speeches full of puns and silly remarks, and that's kind of what Touchstone is suggesting Golding do, and Golding does a little of it with some silly puns, but he doesn't do very much, because I don't think he particularly wants to, and so Touchstone then weighs in and does it all for him. They're doing a kind of double act here. And that bit about, Golding saying, "I will not," and so on, that's about sitting down. As far as I can see, there's always this thing about, you sit in judgment, and people do actually take a chair when they're sitting in judgment on somebody. Golding is being super polite and saying, no, I'm not going to sit down, presumably because you're older than I am, and I wouldn't sit down in your presence. And Touchstone practically pushes him into the chair, I would imagine.
Yes, Golding is very reluctant to be what Touchstone wants him to be in this scene, throughout the whole scene. Both it's that sort of a strange up and downness that they've got, and that could work really nicely in performance as well. Because again, we've been talking previously about the physicality of this play, and so this scene has a physicality which may counterbalance the words coming at us in such density. Other thoughts, Lynn?
I know this is going to seem like a non sequitur because, my Zoom quit working and then I missed them and came back. But I just wanted to point out a little meta theatricality in the Petronel and Quicksilver plot. I was talking about this to my husband, and he's like, wasn't there a playwright who got in trouble for counterfeiting? And I'm like, I don't remember that. But we looked it up, and yeah, Marlowe was arrested for counterfeiting in Flushing, an English garrison town in the Netherlands in 1592. So I wonder if that he's a counterfeiter is a reference to Marlowe.
Yes, have we had any real development of this counterfeiting thing that we had last time? Because it doesn't seem to have gone anywhere, does it? It's like they've been arraigning for a totally different thing. So I don't know what's going on there. I'll go to Lois, then Alan.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just as well, because if they'd actually done that, they really, I think, would have had to be executed. I mean, it was unforgivable. The thing about, I mean, Quicksilver has done some pretty awful stuff. He's been pilfering an enormous amount from Touchstone and, raiding the till. So he's in trouble anyway. But this is all something where Touchstone could either press or drop the charges. But there's nothing they could do about counterfeiting. I mean, they'd really have to be punished for it.
Punishment in the early modern, it's pretty brutal stuff. There's not much mercy going on necessarily around. Alan, then Eric.
Yeah, I mean the other possible Marlowe collection will be Isle of Dogs.
Yeah, actually, the Isle of Dogs was Jonson and Nash. I mean, that was the play that they wrote together.
But was that not the locus where Marlowe?
Deptford.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get bits on the estuary very confused.
Yeah, but I mean, we've had chunks of some chunks of Marlowe earlier on. I mean, there's an awful lot of quoting and self-referential just the stuff about becoming a Lord Mayor and going on the stage earlier is a very self-referential thing as well, because that is something that actually does get performed on stage and relatively recently in stage history a few years back. Aliki.
And then Quicksilver, who was always quoting the plays, is Touchstone is onto him. He's like, oh yeah, well, he learned how to cry by going to the theater.
Yeah, I mean, Quicksilver hasn't had much of an opportunity to say anything. I apologize, Alex. Actually, I think maybe on the thin end of the wedge here.
I said enough yesterday. You had enough from me then.
So, any other thoughts before we dive into a new act? Eric?
Well, I put this in the chat as well, but I was wondering about the whole feathers shenanigans. Is that like sort of a reference to like when I can't remember, was it like theater's running out of feathers or some sort of feathers and hats issue that was sort of in the Blackfriars interlude to I think it was Jack Johnson, but I've no idea, or Malcontent.
The induction to the Malcontent refers to feathers and Blackfriars. I mean, the feather makers, I think, did in fact live in Blackfriars, and Blackfriars was, of course, also where the playhouses were. So it's kind of a reference to that. But also, I think gallants and courtiers were just associated with having, lots of feathers in their hats.
Yes, and it's just the way the Constable just saying, they'd cast them off beforehand. This is how they turned up, and of course they should look pretty miserable because they've fallen in the water. So they probably. I say, as I was pointing out the other day, the Thames isn't great now. It was really not good then. So the odds of them surviving the end of the play from just a disease vector is pretty low, frankly. Any other thoughts? No. Okay. Act 5 it is. So we've had little break, maybe some candle trimming, maybe a bit of music. Act 5, Scene 1, enter Gertrude and Sindefy.
Ah, Sin, hast thou ever read in the chronicle of any lady and her waiting woman driven to that extremity we are, Sin?
Not I, truly, madam, and if I had, it were but cold comfort should come out of books now.
Why, good faith, Sin, I could dine with a lamentable story now. Oh, no, nera, etc. Can you tell nera one, Sin?
None but mine own, madam, which is lamentable enough. First, to be stolen from my friends, which were worshipful and of good account, by a prentice in the habit and disguise of a gentleman, and here brought up to London and promised marriage, and now likely to be forsaken, for he is in possibility to be hanged.
Nay, weep not, good Sin. My Petronel is in as good a possibility as he. Thy miseries are nothing to mine. Sin, I was more than promised marriage, Sin. I had it, Sin, and was made a lady, and by a knight, Sin, which is now as good as no knight, Sin. And I was born in London, which is more than brought up, Sin, and already forsaken, which is past likelihood, Sin, and instead of land in the country, all my knights living lies in the counter, Sin. There's his castle now.
Which he cannot be forced out of, madam.
Yes, if you would live hungry a week or two. Hunger, they say, breaks stone walls. But he is e'en well enough served, Sin, that so soon as ever he had got my hand to the sale of my inheritance, run away from me. And I had been his punk, God bless us. Would the Knight of the Sun or the Palmerin of England have used their ladies so, Sin, or Sir Lancelot, or Sir Tristan?
I do not know, madam.
And thou knowest nothing, Sin. Thou art a fool, Sin. The knighthood nowadays are nothing like the knighthood of old time. They rid a horseback, ours go afoot. They were attended by their squires. Hours by our lackeys, they went buckled in their armour, hours muffled in their cloaks. They travelled wildernesses and deserts, hours scarce dare walk down the streets. They were still pressed to engage their honour, hours still ready to pawn their clothes. They would gallop on at sight of a monster, hours run away at sight of a sergeant. They would help poor ladies, hours make poor ladies.
Aye, madam, they were knights of the Round Table at Winchester that sought adventures. But these are square table at Ordinaries that sit at hazard.
True, Sin. Let him vanish. And tell me, what shall we pawn next?
Aye, marry, madam, a timely consideration for our hostess, profane woman, has sworn by bread and salt that she will not trust us another meal.
Let it stink in her hand, then. I'll not be beholding to her. Let me see. My jewels be gone, and my gowns, my red velvet petticoat that I was married in, and my wedding silk stockings, and all my best apparel. Poor Sin, good faith, rather than thou shouldst pawn a rag more, I'd lay my ladyship in lavender, if I knew where.
Alas, madam, your ladyship.
Why? You do not scorn my ladyship, though it is in a waistcoat? God's my life, you are a Pete indeed. Do I offer to mortgage my ladyship for you and for your avail, and do you turn the lip and alas to my ladyship?
No, madam, but I make question who will lend anything upon it.
Ooh, Harry, and now I warrant you, if you'll seek them out, I'm sure I remember the time when I would have given £1,000, if I had had it, to have been a lady, and I hope I was not bred and born with that appetite alone. Some other gentle born of the city have the same longing, I trust. For my part, I would afford him a pennyworth. My ladyship is little the worse for the wearing, yet I would bate a good deal of the sum. I would lend it, let's see, for £40 in hand, Sin. That would apparel us, and £10 a year, that would keep me and you, Sin, with our needles, and we should never need to be beholding to our scurvy parents. Good Lord, that there are no fairies nowadays, Sin.
Why, madam?
To do miracles and bring ladies money. Sure, if we lay in a cleanly house, they would haunt it, Sin. I'll sweep the chamber soon at night and set a dish of water on the hearth. The fairy may come and bring a pearl or diamond, we don't know, Sin. Or there may be a pot of gold hid on the backside, if we had tools to dig for it. Why may we not rise early in the morning, Sin, afore anybody else is up, and find a jewel in the streets worth £100? May not some great court lady, as she comes from revels at midnight, look out her coach as it's running and lose such a jewel, and we find it?
These are pretty waking dreams, these.
Or may not some old usurer be drunk overnight with a bag of money and leave it behind him on a stall? For God's sake, Sin, let's rise tomorrow by break of day and see. I protest, law, if I had as much money as an alderman, I would scatter some of it on the street for poor ladies to find when their lights were laid up. Now, remember my song of the golden shower. Why may not I have such a fortune? I'll sing it, and try what luck I shall have after it. Fond fables tell of old how Jove in Danae's lap fell in a shower of gold, by which she caught a clap. Oh, had it been my hap, howe'er the blow doth threaten, so well I like the play, that I could wish all day a knight to be so beaten.
Enter Mistress Touchstone.
Oh, here's my mother. Good luck, I hope. Have you brought any money, mother? Pray you, mother, your blessing. Nay, sweet mother, do not weep.
God bless you. I would I were in my grave.
Nay, dear mother, can you steal no more money from my father? Dry your eyes and comfort me. Alas, it is my knight's fault, and not mine, that I am in a waistcoat and attired thus simply.
Simply? 'Tis better than thou deservest. Never whimper for the matter. Thou shouldst have looked before thou hadst leapt. Thou wert afire to be a lady, and now your ladyship and you may both blow at the coal for aught I know. Self do, self have. The hasty person never wants woe, they say.
Hey then, mother, you should have looked to it. A body would think you were the older. I did by my kind. He was a knight, and I was fit to be a lady. It's not lack of liking, but lack of living that suffers us. And you talk yourself and your sittener in this, I faith. You show what husband you come on, I wis. You smell the touchstone. He that will do no more for his daughter than he is married to a scurvy gold-end man, and his prentice that he will for his other daughter that has wedded a knight, his customer. By this light, I think he is not my legitimate father.
Oh, good madam, do not take up your mother so.
Nay, nay, let her e'en alone. Let her ladyship grieve me still with her bitter taunts and terms. I have not dole enough to see her in this miserable case. I, without her velvet gowns, without ribbons, without jewels, without French wires, or cheap bread, or quails, or a little dog, or a gentleman usher, or anything indeed that's fit for a lady.
Except her tongue.
And I not able to relieve her, neither, being kept so short by my husband. Well, God knows my heart. I did little think that ever she should have had need of her sister Golding.
Why, mother, I had not yet. Alas, good mother, be not intoxicate for me. I am well enough. I would not change husbands with my sister, I. The leg of a lark is better than the body of a kite.
I know that, but...
What, sweet mother, what?
It's but ill food when nothing's left but the claw.
That's true, mother. Why me?
Nay, sweet ladybird, sigh not. Child, madam, why do you weep thus? Be of good cheer. I shall die if you cry, and mar your complexion thus.
Alas, mother, what should I do?
Go to thy sister's, child. She'll be proud thy ladyship will come under her roof. She'll win thy father to release thy knight, and redeem thy gowns, and thy coach, and thy horses, and set thee up again.
But will she get him to set my knight up too?
That she will, or anything else thou'lt ask her.
I will begin to love her if I thought she would do this.
Try her, good Chuck, I warrant thee.
Dost thou think she'll do it?
Oh, I, madam, and be glad you will receive it.
That's a good maiden. She tells you true. Come, I'll take order for your debts in the alehouse.
Go, Sin, and pray for thy Frank, as I will for my pet.
And they exit. So we get a sort of scene of extended lamentation. As there's a lot of there's a lot of Gertrude doing Gertrude things, of which we have had essayed earlier, but at greater length now. It is the Gertrude Show. Welcome to the Gertrude Show. Here is much Gertrude. Lois.
Yeah, I think it's charming, actually. I mean, all these fantasies about knights and ladies and finding gold in the street. And then she also sings, and it's quite a pretty song. I think it is one for which we have music, in fact. The whole thing, takes on this funny lyrical tone with Sindefy also coming a bit more into her own as the one who's realistic. And also, of course, you get this alternate story about Sindefy, who, Quicksilver refers to her as his punk, and you get the impression that she's somebody employed by security. But in fact, according to this story, she actually was the gentleman come out of the country that she purported to be in, and Quicksilver seems to have got her into London on false pretenses and promised her marriage. So she's a very different character from what we thought at the beginning.
Lynn.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's some implication that security is actually related to her, sort of in loco parentis, because Quicksilver calls him dad repeatedly.
Yeah. A lot of them refer to my father, security. I think you can kind of it's kind of an adopted thing, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Aliki, then Alan.
It does make you think Gertrude is a little bit more blameless than she was up till now, not because she's so extravagantly sorry for herself, but because she's such a blithering idiot. I mean, anybody who really thought any of this stuff might happen is obviously in cloud cuckoo land.
Yes, I mean, this is the thing. You could argue, if you're trying to temper such a temperament, then marrying her to Golding would have been a much more logical choice. Of course, he might not have appreciated that.
I mean...
But yeah, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe the reference to father security maybe is related to the pawnbroker being referred to as uncle, which is long-running London slang, as I understand it. But the other thought I had is that Mistress Touchstone is either seriously delusional or thinks that Mildred is a much softer touch than she's got any right to be.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But
we know so little about Mildred.
Yeah. Mildred has not been a large presence in this text so far. Any other thoughts, Lynn?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine Mildred maintaining her sister like a lady when she herself lives very modestly. My guess is Mildred will be willing to relieve her distress, but not maintain her in the style to which she wants to become accustomed.
I mean, it's interesting also. Oh, Elizabeth.
Yeah, Robert, just speaking to what we were talking about, just about the conversation between the women. I really like that the women are talking about money, essentially talking about like what they really hunger after, and especially Gertrude, who's just wants stuff. She wants her little dog, and she wants her money and her jewels and her dresses. And I like that she's unashamed of that fact, and those are the things that she will think that she believes will make her a lady. And I like the way her mother is also quite mercenary, saying like, yeah, I want you to have those things as well, because those are the things that are important. Like, there's not so much about the beauty of what's within here. It's all about the trappings of extravagance and the trappings of like wealth.
Sarah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, yes, the men are talked about, but there are sections of this scene that pass the Bechdel test, which, I mean, how often does that happen in an early modern play? I mean, I don't ever remember it happening, honestly. I've been doing this 3 years.
It did happen once.
Okay.
I can't remember when it was. I mean, we should have put some banners out at the time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's rare enough to have. It might have happened in a master or something like that. There were definitely some. It's very rare actually to have that many women talking to each other. Because
and with no men present either. Like available. Just I just really enjoyed that scene, and I thought the pair of them, it was just such a great comic scene, and just such a lovely opportunity for two comic actors to get stuck in and do a scene that they don't normally get the opportunity to do in plays from this era. So yeah, I loved it.
And I mean, one of the reasons why they're able to not talk about the men so often is they're not really talking that much about plot. I mean, there is some plot in there. There are some little things that move things along, but actually, most of the scene isn't actively moving the plot forward. It's actually just doing interesting character stuff. I mean, they reiterate a few plot points and they move a few counters around so that we get into the literally to the counter. But it's interesting in a play that actually doing that, where you sort of going, well, actually, is this scene structurally that necessary? And it's but it's delightful anyway, and that's rare. We don't get that very often. Lois.
Well, I think it is sort of necessary because, I mean, the relationship between Gertrude and the rest of her family, apart from her mother, was really appalling in the earlier scene where she confronted Touchstone. It looked as if they could never possibly be reconciled. And her mother has made a sensible suggestion, use Mildred as an intermediary. I mean, if they're ever going to get back together again, there's going to have to be something like that.
Yes, but for the length of the scene itself, I mean, it's really enjoying doing something a bit different with its structural nature, which as I say isn't so prominent. Anyway, we need to move on because we've still got quite a chunk to do. So Act 5, Scene 2, enter Touchstone, Golding, and Wolf.
I will receive no letters, Master Wolf. You shall pardon me.
Good father, let me entreat you.
Son Golding, I will not be tempted. I find mine own easy nature, and I know not what a well-penned, subtle letter may work upon it. There may be tricks packing, do you see? Return with your packet, sir.
Believe it, sir. You need fear no packing here. These are but letters of submission, all.
Sir, I do look for no submission. I will bear myself in this like blind justice. Work upon that now. When the sessions come, they shall hear from me.
From whom come your letters, Master Wolf?
And please you, sir, one from Sir Petronel, another from Francis Quicksilver, and a third from Old Security, who is almost mad in prison. There are two to your worship, one from Master Francis, sir, another from the knight.
I do wonder, Master Wolf, why you should travail thus in a business so contrary to kind or the nature of your place, that you, being the keeper of a prison, should labour the release of your prisoners, whereas methinks it were far more natural and kindly in you to be ranging about for more, and not let these scape you have already under the tooth. But they say you wolves, when you have sucked the blood, once that they are dry, you are done.
Sir, your worship may descant as you please of my name, but I protest I was never so mortified with any men's discourse or behaviour in prison. Yet I have had all sorts of men in the kingdom under my keys, and almost of all religions in the land, as Papist, Protestant, Puritan, Brownist, Anabaptist, Millenary, Family of Love, Jew, Turk, Infidel, Atheist, Good Fellow, and so on until someone interrupts me.
And which of all these thinks Master Wolf was the best religion?
Oh, troth, Master Deputy, they that pay fees best. We never examine their consciences farther.
I believe you, Master Wolf. Good faith, sir. Here's a great deal of humility in these letters.
Humility, sir. Aye, were your worship an eyewitness of it, you would say so. The knight will lie in the night's ward, do what we can, sir. And Master Quicksilver would be in the hole if we would let him. I never knew or saw prisoners more penitent or more devout. They will sit you up all night singing of psalms and edifying the whole prison. Only Security sings a note too high sometimes because he lies in the twopenny ward far off and cannot take his tune. The neighbors cannot rest for him, but come every morning to ask what godly prisoners we have.
Which on him is so devout, the knight or t'other?
Oh, both, sir, but the young man especially. I never heard his like. He's cut his hair, too. He is so well given and has such good gifts. He can tell you almost all the stories of the Book of Martyrs and speak you all the sick man's salve without book.
Ah, if he had had grace. He was brought up where it grew, I wis. On, Master Wolf.
And he has converted one Fangs, a sergeant, a fellow could neither write nor read. He was called the bandog of the counter. And he has brought him already to pare his nails and say his prayers, and 'tis hoped he will sell his place shortly and become an intelligencer.
No more. I am coming already. If I should give any farther care, I were taken. Adieu, Master, good Master Wolf. Son, I do feel my own weakness. Do not importune me. Pity is a room that I am subject to, but I will resist it. Master Wolf, fish is cast away that is cast in dry pools. Tell hypocrisy it will not do. I have touched and tried too often. I am yet proof, and I will remain so. When the sessions come, they shall hear from me. In the meantime, to all suits, to all entreaties, to all letters, to all tricks, I will be deaf as an adder and blind as a beetle. Lay mine ear to the ground and lock mine eyes in my hand against all temptations.
Exit Touchstone.
You see, Master Wolf, how inexorable he is. There is no hope to recover him. Pray you commend me to my brother Knight and to my fellow Francis. Present him with this small token of my love. Tell him I wish I could do him any worthier office, but in this, it is desperate, yet I will not fail to try the uttermost of my power for him. And, sir, as far as I have any credit with you, pray you let them want nothing, though I'm not ambitious they should know so much.
Sir, both your actions and words speak you to be a true gentleman. They shall know only what is fit, and no more.
And they exit. Yes, getting a little look at the prison system, and again, we haven't talked much about geography, but much of this play is all happening in a relatively narrow area of geography, stuff that we've explored elsewhere. It's sort of orbiting Cheapside in various different directions, and yes, the counter is not that far away from there at all. Just on one of the side streets. So we're all orbiting this area where the goldsmiths will be working, where their guild is based, their livery company is based, and we ventured eastward, but I think we're not going any further eastward ho. By the way, I'm just for anyone hoping for more eastward action. I think we're probably quite centred now. Lois.
Yeah, the counter turns up in a number of plays. I think we had it in Every Man Out of His Humour, for instance. And it did operate a real hierarchy. I mean, that bit about the hole, that's the absolute, as it sounds like, the worst bit of the prison, where enormous numbers of people are packed into a very small space. And, you probably catch anything that was going around and die fairly quickly. And then there's so-called Knights ward, and there's the tuppenny ward, and so on. It's a question of what you're willing to pay, but that's the point of the great humility that Petronel and Quicksilver are supposedly showing.
And we still have that cliche, and any prison movie, put him in the hole. It's still very much a thing that exists, or at least hypothetically exists today, though not hopefully in a modern, enlightened prison service. No one's gonna take the bait on that one, are they? No. Any other thoughts about this scene? So Golding is actively working one way here. You get the sense that Golding's a decent chap in many ways. He does seem to be our exemplar in this play. Getting that impression. Any other thoughts? Otherwise, we will rattle on. No. Okay. Act 5, Scene 3. Enter Holdfast and Bramble.
Who would you speak with, sir?
I would speak with one security that is prisoner here.
You're welcome, sir. Stay there. I'll call him to you. Master Security.
Enter security.
Who calls?
Here's a gentleman would speak with you.
What is he? Is one that grafts my forehead now I'm in prison and comes to see how the horns shoot up and prosper.
You must pardon him, sir. The old man is a little crazed with his imprisonment.
What say you to me, sir? Look you here, my learned counsel, Master Bramble. Cry you mercy, sir. When saw you my wife?
She's now at my house, sir, and desired me that I would come to visit you and inquire of you your case, that we might work some means to get you forth.
My case, Master Bramble, is stone walls and iron grates. You see it? It is the weakest part on't. To getting me forth, no means but hang myself, and so to be carried forth, from which they have here bound me in intolerable bands.
Why, but what is it you are in for, sir?
For my sins, sir, whereof marriage is the greatest. Oh, had I never married, I had never known this purgatory, to which hell is a kind of cool bath in respect. My wife's confederacy, sir, with old Touchstone, that she might keep her jubilee and the feast of her new moon. Do you understand me, sir?
And enter Quicksilver.
Good sir, go in and talk with him. The light does him harm, and his example will be hurtful to the weak prisoners. Fie, farther security that you'll be still so profane. Will nothing humble you?
Exeunt, Security, Bramble, and Holdfast enter 2 prisoners with a friend.
What's he?
Oh, he is the rare young man. Do you know him?
Not I. I never saw him, I can remember.
Why, it is he that was the gallant prentice of London, Master Touchstone's man.
Who? Quicksilver?
Aye, this is he.
Is this he? They say he has been a gallant indeed.
Oh, the royalest fellow that ever was bred up in the city. He would play you his £1,000 a night dice, keep knights and lords company, go with them to bawdy houses, had his 6 men in his livery, kept a stable of hunting horses, and his wench in her velvet gown and cloth of silver. Here's one night with him, here in prison.
And how miserably he has changed.
Oh, that's voluntary in him. He gave away all his rich clothes as soon as ever he came in here among the prisoners, and will eat of the basket for humility.
Why will he do so?
Alas, he has no hope of life. He mortifies himself. He does but linger on till the sessions.
Oh, he has penned the best thing that he calls his repentance or his last farewell that ever you heard. He is a pretty poet, and for prose you would wonder how many prisoners he has helped out with penning petitions for him and not take a penny. Look, this is the knight in the rug gown. Stand by.
Enter Sir Petronel, Bramble, Quicksilver.
Sir, for security's sake, I have told him. Say he should be condemned to be carted or whipped for a board. Also, why, I'll lay an execution on him of £200. Let him acknowledge a judgment. He shall do it in half an hour. They shall not at all fetch him out without paying the execution. Oh, my word.
But can we not be bailed, Master Bramble?
Hardly. There are none of the judges in town. Else you should remove yourself, in spite of him, with a habeas corpus. But if you have a friend to deliver your tale sensibly to some justice of the town, that he may have feeling of it, do you see, you may be bailed, for as I understand the case, 'tis only done in terrorem, and you shall have an action of false imprisonment against him when you come out, and perhaps £1,000 costs.
And enter Master Wolf.
How now, Master Wolf? What news? What return?
Faith, bad all. Yonder will be no letters received. He says the sessions shall determine it. Only Master Deputy Golding commends him to you, and with this token wishes he could do you other good.
I thank him. Good Master Bramble, trouble our quiet no more. Do not molest us in prison thus with your winding devices. Pray you depart. For my part, I commit my cause to him that can succour me. Let God work his will. Master Wolf, I pray you let this be distributed among the prisoners, and desire them to pray for us.
It shall be done, Master Francis.
An excellent temper.
Now God send him good luck.
Exeunt the 2 prisoners and friend.
But what said my father-in-law, Master Wolf?
Enter Holdfast.
There's one would speak with you, sir.
I'll tell you anon. Anon, Sir Petronel. Who is it?
A gentleman, sir, that will not be seen.
Enter Golding.
Where is he? Ah, Master Deputy, your worship is welcome.
Peace.
Away, Sarah.
Exit Bramble.
Good faith. Master Wolf, the estate of these gentlemen, for whom you were so late and willing a suitor, doth much affect me, because I am desirous to do them some fair office, and find there is no means to make my father relent, so likely as to bring him to be a spectator of their miseries. I have ventured a device, which is to make myself your prisoner. Entreating you will presently go report it to my father, and, feigning an action at suit of some third person, pray him by this token that he will presently, and with all secrecy, come hither for my bail, which train, if any, I know will bring him abroad. And then, having him here, I doubt not that we shall be all fortunate in the event.
Ah, sir, I will put on my best speed to effect it. Please you, come in.
Yes, and let me rest concealed, I pray you.
See here, a benefit truly done, when it is done timely, freely, and to no ambition.
And they exit. So sometimes we have issues with plays with sort of the not the nicest people in the universe, and then suddenly there's a scene and they randomly repent, and we're supposed to like them. Whereas I think this play is actually doing the work of actually setting up how awful this prison clearly is supposed to be, and then we have sort of the little bit of time, that you see good works happening amongst the people we're not so good, and it is trying very hard to say, okay, their repentance is genuine, and look at and putting the work in there. How are we feeling about that? Do we feel it's working? Are we accepting? I'm seeing the shaking her head there, but how are we feeling here? The play's trying hard. It's trying hard here. Thoughts on the room, Sarah then Lois.
I applaud the fact that it's trying. I don't believe it for a second, and I don't know. It's like the playwrights are trying to do something different here. They are actually trying to set it up, because maybe they've had complaints in the past that these, character reformations were just too dramatic and to be believed. But I'm just trying to think, I'm thinking about all the many different Quicksilvers that we've had in previous scenes, and I'm having great difficulty imagining that any of them would repent, honestly. The prison is really awful, so I don't know. I feel like maybe there does need to be a scene with because even in that scene that's in the prison, Quicksilver's there, but he doesn't really get to sort of. I don't know. Yeah, no, I'm not really buying it. But then maybe that's just me being cynical.
No, actually, just a point. What are the crimes of Quicksilver again? What has he actually done?
Well, he hadn't really done a lot other than get drunk and brag. But then there was that really nasty speech that he had, which, I guess if you cut that out, then...
Yeah, but also that speech lands in a different way for us today than it would have done then. I think we're projecting onto that. He cut it as has been done, and that's fine. But in terms of what has he actually done, he has been involved in gulling some not very nice people.
Yeah, and also... he was, mind you, I guess if she was willing, but like the whole plot with Sindefy and oh my god, what's her name, the wife, Winifred. I don't know, he's just not a very pleasant person, and he didn't strike me as being a particularly just didn't strike me. He was a very, very present person, in acting terms, you talk about people who are like distant and far away, living in the past, and people who are very present. He strikes me as a very present person. So I guess that could go either way, because it could, the circumstances he found himself in, maybe he's just reacting to them, I guess. But he didn't strike me as the type who was a particularly deep thinker.
He was drunk most of the time as well. Aliki then Ellen.
Didn't he steal from Touchstone, or did I imagine that? Yeah. Okay, so he's definitely...
I imply that a few times, yeah.
He's... If we take Sindefy's version of events, he's debauched her when she thought he was offering marriage. And he's taken part in and connived at this great con to steal more money.
Oh, I was just asking for clarity. I'm not necessarily.
No, I'm not, and I'm answering for clarity.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
Yeah, this prison sounds terrible, and I don't really want anyone in it.
No, exactly, Alan.
Yeah, I was going to make the point that Aliki made there that he's converted debts owed to Touchstone to his own benefit. Fraud, basically.
Yeah.
But does the punishment fit the crime? I'll go to Elizabeth.
Can we just take a moment to reflect on what a terrible lawyer Bramble is?
Yeah. Yes.
Because he just comes along and it's just, everything he says is not what you want to hear. He's just like, I'm just going to be awful and just unhelpful. I just wondered, what was his purpose? Was he just to be funny? Just to poke fun at lawyers.
Very possibly. Yeah. What's your advice to me as a lawyer? Get a better lawyer. Lois.
Yeah. Well, no, what he's actually suggesting is security, in case security is sentenced for his various crimes, which mostly seem to have to do with fraud, and if he's sentenced to be whipped or put in the stocks or punished, he'd be better off staying in prison. And so Bramble suggests that he get somebody to make a lawsuit against him for debt, which can't be discharged without somebody paying the debt. It'll be a fake suit, but it'll mean that he can stay in prison where he feels safer. And security is said to have gone almost mad in prison, and he does seem to be. He's obsessed with cuckolding again. You would have thought that was taken care of in the previous act, where his wife convinced him that she hadn't, in fact, been running off with someone else. But now he appears to have a thing about cuckolding, and that may just be the result of insanity brought on by being in prison. Anyway, the situation is really weird. But there was that pun on taking security, in the earlier scene, will you take security? You bet I will. And they do indeed take him and put him in prison.
Anyway, we need to move on. I'm going to run the next two scenes into each other and take us to the climax, as it were. Act 5, Scene 4. Enter Touchstone, Mistress Touchstone, Gertrude, Mildred, Sindefy, and Winifred.
I will sail by you and not hear you like the wise Ulysses.
Dear father.
Husband.
Father.
Master Touchstone.
Away, sirens! I will immure myself against your cries and lock myself up to your lamentations.
Gentle husband, hear me.
Father, it is I, my lady Flash. My sister and I are friends.
Good father.
Do we have a Winifred?
I think this may be her only line in the play anyway. In this part of it.
Why is Winifred... Well,
Yeah, she's in there.
why is she even there?
Winifred is supposed to be at Bramble's house, but she's here, I think, because she needs to be here for the next scene, really, or she needs to be around. Yeah, I think this is her only line.
Yes, be not hardened, good Master Touchstone.
I pray you be merciful.
I am deaf, I do not hear you. I have stopped mine ears with shoemaker's wax and drunk lethe and mandragora to forget you. All you speak to me, I commit to the air.
Enter Wolf.
Oh, no, Master Wolf.
Where's Master Touchstone? I must speak with him presently. I've lost my breath for haste.
What is the matter, sir? Pray all be well.
Master Deputy Golding is arrested upon an execution and desires him presently to come to him, forsooth.
Ay me! Do you hear, father?
Tricks! Confederacy tricks! I have them in my nose. I sent 'em.
Who's that? Master Touchstone?
Why, it is Master Wolf himself, husband.
Father!
I am deaf still, I say. I will neither yield to the song of the siren, nor the voice of the hyena, the tears of the crocodile, nor the howling of the wolf. Avoid my habitation, monsters!
Why, you are not mad, sir. I pray you, look forth and see the token I have brought you, sir.
Huh? What token is it?
Do you know it, sir?
My son Golding's ring. Are you in earnest, Master Wolf?
Aye, by my faith, sir. He is in prison, and required me to use all speed and secrecy to you.
My cloak! There! Oh, pray you be patient. I am plagued for my austerity. My cloak! At whose suit, Master Wolf?
I'll tell you as we go, sir.
And they exit Act 5, Scene 5. Enter two prisoners and their friend.
Why, but is this offence such as he cannot hope of life?
Troth, it should seem so, and 'tis great pity, for he is exceeding patient.
They say he is charged, but on suspicion of felony yet.
Aye, but his master is a shrewd fellow. He'll prove great matter against him.
I'd as leave as anything I could see as farewell.
Oh, 'tis rarely written. Why, Toby may get him to sing it to you. He's not curious to anybody.
Oh, no. He would that all the world should take knowledge of his repentance, and thinks he merits in it the more shame he suffers.
Pray thee, try what thou canst do.
I warrant you he will not deny it, if he be not hoarse with the often repeating of it.
Exit second prisoner.
You never saw a more courteous creature than he is, and the knight, too, the poorest prisoner of the house, may command him. You shall hear a thing admirably penned.
Is the knight any scholar too?
No, but he will speak very well, and discourse admirably of running horses and whitefriars, and against bawds, and of cocks, and talk as loud as a hunter, but is none.
Enter Wolf and Touchstone.
Please you, stay here. I'll call his worship down to you.
Exit Wolf. Re-enter Wolf with Golding, Quicksilver, Sir Petronel, and security.
See, he has brought him, and the knight too. Salute him, I pray. Sir, this gentleman upon our report is very desirous to hear some piece of your repentance.
Sir, with all my heart, and as I told Master Toby, I shall be glad to have any man a witness of it, and the more openly I profess it, I hope it will appear the heartier and the more unfeigned.
Who is this? My man Francis and my son-in-law.
Sir, it is all the testimony I shall leave behind me to the world, and my master, that I have so offended.
Good sir.
I writ it when my spirits were oppressed.
I'll be sworn for you, Francis.
It is in imitation of Mannington's, he that was hanged at Cambridge, that cut off the horse's head at a blow.
So, sir.
To the tune of, I wail in woe, I plunge in pain.
An excellent ditty it is, and worthy of a new tune.
In Cheapside, famous for gold and plate, Quicksilver, I did dwell of late. I had a master good and kind, that would have wrought me to his mind. He bade me still work upon that, but alas, I wrought I knew not what. He was a touchstone black, but true. He told me still what would ensue. Yet woe is me, I would not learn. I saw, alas, but could not discern.
Excellent, excellent, well.
Oh, let him alone, he's taken already.
I cast my coat and cap away, I went in silks and satins gay, false metal of good manners I did daily coin unlawfully. I scorned my master being drunk, I kept my gelding and my punk, and with a knight, Sir Flash by name, who now is sorry for the same.
I thank you, Francis.
I thought by sea to run away, but Thames and tempest did me stay.
I'm sorry.
He's opening his heart to you, man.
I just saw what my next line was, and I just couldn't. I'm sorry. This cannot be feigned, sure. Heaven pardon my severity. The ragged colt may prove a good horse.
Now he listens and is transported. He's forgot me.
Still Eastward Ho was all my word, but westward I had no regard, nor never thought what would come after, as did, alas, his youngest daughter. At last the black ox trod on my foot, and I saw then what longed unto it. Now cry I, Touchstone, touch me still, and make me current by thy skill.
And I will do it, Francis.
Stay him, Master Deputy. Now is the time. We shall lose the song else.
I protest it is the best that ever I heard.
How like you it, gentlemen?
Admirable, sir.
This stanza now following alludes to the story of Mannington, from whence I took my project for my invention.
Pray you go on, sir.
O Mannington, thy stories show thou cutt'st a horse head off at a blow. But I confess I have not the force for to cut off the head of a horse. Yet I desire this grace to win, that I may cut off the horse head of sin, and leave his body in the dust of sin's highway and bogs of lust, whereby I may take virtue's purse, and live with her, for better, for worse.
Admirable, sir, and excellently conceited.
Alas, sir.
Son Golding and Master Wolf, I thank you. The deceit is welcome, especially from thee, whose charitable soul in this hath shown a high point of wisdom and honesty. Listen, I am ravished with his repentance, and could stand here a whole apprenticeship to hear him.
Forth, good sir.
This is the last, and the farewell. Farewell, Cheapside, farewell, sweet trade, of goldsmiths all that never shall fade. Farewell, dear fellow prentices all, and be you warned by my fall. Shun usurers, bawds, and dice and drabs. Avoid them as you would French scabs. Seek not to go beyond your tether, but cut your thongs unto your leather. So shall you thrive by little and little, 'scape Tyburn, counters, and the spittle.
And 'scape them shalt thou, my penitent and dear Francis.
Master!
Father,
I can no longer forbear to do your humility right. Arise, and let me honour your repentance with the hearty and joyful embraces of a father and friend's love. Quicksilver, thou hast eaten to my breast, Quicksilver, with the drops of thy sorrow, and killed the desperate opinion I had of thy reclaim.
Oh, sir, I am not worthy to see your worshipful face.
forgive me, Father.
Speak no more. All former passages are forgotten, and here my word shall release you. Thank this worthy brother and kind friend Francis. Master Wolf, I am their bail.
A shout in the prison.
Master Touchstone! Master Touchstone!
Who's that?
Security, sir.
Pray you, sir, if you'll be one with a song, hear my lamentable tune too. Oh, Master Touchstone, my heart is full of woe. Alas, I am a cuckold, and why should it be so? Because I was a usurer and bawd, as all you know. For which again I tell you, my heart is full of woe.
Bring him forth, Master Wolf, and release his bands. This day shall be sacred to mercy, and the mirth of this encounter in the counter. See, we are encountered with more suitors.
Enter Mistress, Touchstone, Gertrude, Mildred, Sindefy, Winifred, etc. Everybody's on stage. Budge up, move to the left.
Save your breath, save your breath. All things have succeeded to your wishes, and we are heartily satisfied in their events.
Ah, run away, have I caught you? And how has my poor knight done all this while?
Dear lady wife, forgive me.
As heartily as I would be forgiven, knight. Dear father, give me your blessing and forgive me too. I have been proud and lascivious, father, and a fool, father, and being raised to the state of a wanton coy thing called a lady, father, have scorned you, father, and my sister's velvet cap too, and would make a mouth at the city as I rid through it, and stop mine ears at Bow Bell. I have said your beard was a base one, father, and that you looked like Tweerpipe the Taberer, and that my mother was but my witwife.
Now, God forgive you, child madam.
No more repetitions. What else is wanting to make our harmony full?
Only this, sir, that my fellow Francis make amends to Mistress Sindefy with marriage.
With all my heart.
And security give her a dower, which shall be all the restitution he shall make of that huge mass he hath so unlawfully gotten.
Oh, excellently devised. A good motion. What says Master Security?
I will say anything, sir, that you have me say. Would I were no cuckold.
Cuckold, husband. I think this wearing of yellow has infected you.
Why, Master Security, that should rather be a comfort to you than a corrosive. If you be a cuckold, it's an argument you have a beautiful woman to your wife. Then you shall be much made of. You shall have store of friends, never want money. You shall be eased of much of your wedlock pain. Others will take it for you. Besides, you being a usurer and likely to go to hell, the devils will never torment you. They'll take you for one of their own race. Again, if you be a cuckold and know it not, you are an innocent. If you know it and endure it, a true martyr.
I am resolved. Come hither, Winnie.
Well then, all are pleased, or shall be anon. Master Wolf, you look hungry, methinks. Have you no apparel to lend him, Francis, to shift him?
No, sir, nor I desire none. But here make it my suit that I may go home through the streets in these, as a spectacle, or rather an example to the children of Cheapside.
Thou hast thy wish. Now, London, look about, and in this moral see thy glass run out. Behold the careful father, thrifty son, the solemn deeds which each of us have done. The usurer punished, and from fall so steep, the prodigal child reclaimed, and the lost sheep.
At which point someone notices the audience is out there.
Stay, sir. I perceive the multitude are gathered together to view our coming out at the counter. See if the streets and the fronts of the houses be not thick with people, and the windows filled with ladies, as on the solemn day of the pageant. Oh, may you find in this our pageant here the same contentment which you came to seek. And as that show but draws you once a year, may this attract you hither once a week.
And they exit, as boys' companies may indeed have only a performance day once a week, though opinions vary as to precisely depending on company and time period. Yes, so it's referring to the Lord Mayor's show and how busy Cheapside gets on such a day, and people looking out of their windows to see the pageant. And maybe if you're willing to come and see that once a year, come on, join us once a week. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Go to the lobby. There are sweets. Okay, so we are saved by musical theatre. Literally.
Yeah, if we're saved, it's by musical theatre. I mean, the conversions are always kind of hard to sell. They're a little bit of a hard sell, right? Quicksilver has been such a reprobate. And this is so sudden, and we don't see the process. We just hear it narrated.
I don't know, we've got
but he does his
first and
repentance.
second prisoner. They've been watching him for all this time. They spent an entire act. The entire act.
But and then his repentance takes the form of a song. And I think that might be sort of our way to decode this, or way to read this, is that the fact that he confesses and repents in a song reminds us that this is theater, that this is not real life. It doesn't have to be psychologically realistic or persuasive, that they're just asking us to play the game with them. So, I mean, I don't know if that's what you meant, Rob, but yeah, musical theater saves the day.
Well, it's also it's reminiscent of the kind of songs associated with people about to be hanged as well. So there's a sort of thing of ballads about people being hanged, and the kind of hanging speeches that you'd make. So there's a sort of darker overtone to this as well, actually, that we wouldn't get today, and I don't think for a modern performance that would come across. But there is that element. Alex.
Yeah, actually, you saying that's just reminded me of Threepenny Opera. There's the ballads that the kid sings before he's hanged. But I love it, and it actually worked for me because I think, again, it goes back to that thing. Yesterday we were talking about who controls the audience and who has the power over the audience. And granted, they sort of explicitly acknowledge the audience at the end, but musical theatre is enormously powerful, and songs will take you where you need to get in a musical. That's why they're there, because they're the nearest we have to a soliloquy. And this reminded me a bit of the sort of shows of the 20s, like The Girlfriend and Kitty's Kisses, where you have these potentially terrible things about to happen, and people being accused of being adventuresses and divorces. And they're sort of all solved by a Deus Ex Machina, and then a song at the end. And actually, when Kitty's Kisses, which was a 1920s show, was reconstituted, they'd lost the ending of it, and all they did was stick in the Continental, and everybody danced the Continental at the end and talked about how great the Continental was, and you kind of forgot all the bad stuff that had kind of gone before. So it kind of worked for me in that actually there is a power in it of bringing Touchstone to believe him, because he's controlling the musical number. And the musical number is not just the music, it's the choreography, it's the lights, it's the costumes, it's everything else that goes with the production number. So I totally
and it's not our only repentance by song, because also we've got Gertrude at the beginning of the act has done exactly the same thing, or is singing in a woeful way. And then, of course, we have the double comedy of Security trying his own song, which is suitably not as good. And there's something delightful. And, of course, it's a boys' company play. So boys' companies, I mean, it does vary on companies. Some companies are better at singing than others. But, you know, this is clearly a very songy show throughout, even if it's snatches of songs rather than full songs sometimes, and there are options there where music's part of it. And yeah, I think it's quite. I'm convinced by Quicksilver. I think he's perfectly contrite. There is no seriously, there is no evidence in the text to say he's not genuinely contrite. Show me the evidence. Show me the evidence.
Near-death experience by drowning will do that, maybe. I don't know.
He's had a very bad week.
I can't help but kind of picture the two prisoners and friend as just being chained up on one wall for the whole scene. Or at least the two prisoners. And just every once in a while it cuts over to them.
We've been here 30 years. Oh, he's so good to us, this one.
I do have a quick question. I may have misunderstood something, but at the end of the previous act, when they're leaving to go to the prison, they made it sound like Golding was in trouble, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
And they never resolved that as like, oh, I misunderstood or something.
Yeah.
They really made it sound like Golding had been arrested, and we got no other hint of that. And that's odd. I mean, it's the only way to get Touchstone there, and Golding may have contrived at that.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to see some hint to make that connect somewhere.
Well, he does do it.
Yeah, there was a moment. There was who wants to lean in on that?
Yeah.
Lois.
Yeah, I mean, Golding says this to Wolfe. You know, the only way we can get Touchstone here is, you know, he cares. Golding knows that Touchstone cares about him, and he will certainly come there if he hears that his beloved son-in-law is in jail. So he just makes up this thing about being arrested.
Oh,
yeah. No, I mean,
okay, but they never resolve it. That's what. Okay,
well,
gotcha.
it doesn't need to be resolved. It's a complete fake. I mean, he hasn't been arrested. Yeah.
Yes, because when Touchstone reveals himself and he goes, "I know it's all a lie. You did it to get me here," and yeah. Right. It is fleeting. It does. It's not there. You know, it has to be pointed so that we definitely get it. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to these dark overtones and like the musical aspects. I just kept thinking of like Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, because they talk about chopping the head off a horse, which I think was pretty graphic. And then you have this whole scene when Touchstone talks to security and then basically says that he should be fine with being a cuckold because of all these horrible things about it. Like, oh, you know, you go to hell and you're likely to go to hell anyway because you're a usurer. And it's like none of it's supposed to be satisfying for the characters, and it's supposed to be almost like it's still humorous and comic for the audience, but it has this like dark side to it as well, which I think is quite complex and interesting for an ending, because there's a lot of like winks to the audience, like this is the end now, so we have to kind of wrap it up, and this is how we're going to do it for you.
Yeah, and it does. Touchstone is there to do the conventional morality play ending, and then Quicksilver goes, "Oh, there's lots of people gathered outside the counter to watch what we're doing," and that sort of comic play of explaining to security, as you're right, for an audience effect, not necessarily for an in-world. I mean, I think that's funny if security is sitting there going, Yeah, and really enthusiastically embracing it in that sort of way. Eric,
I kind of like to think that all this has been sort of like a pageant, because you just mentioned pageants as well. That you've got like a sort of an actual like musical that is happening on the streets, rather than like sort of, because you've got the geography of London, right? You've got like sort of the whole situation, so it's kind of you don't need to actually build a set and stuff. You can do it outdoors if it's not raining, obviously, and just have them being followed by an orchestra randomly.
I do love the idea of doing this as a film, and they all burst out the compter, and they're doing song and dance, and people in the streets are gathering around. Go on, etc., etc. I have no idea the context of what this is going on, but I'm going with the rhythm. Sarah.
Yeah,
He's going to sing.
Sorry. Just following on from what Elizabeth was saying about that cuckoldry speech, I did love that particular joke about the devils will never torment you; they'll take you for one of their own race because he's got the horns, the cuckold's horns on. I did think that was hilarious, but it was quite dark. I mean, it was just like, yeah. We sort of, security says, I am resolved, sir, come hither, Winnie. It's like you can imagine he just doesn't have a choice because he's completely, so yeah, I don't know. I think Elizabeth's right. There are dark undertones in this kind of happy ending, but I think it just kind of adds to the play started with like quite a lot of anarchy. And it's kind of finishing in the same way, I feel, but that seems fitting.
Lois.
Yeah. There are a lot of things that are really up to the director or the cast to work out. And that's certainly one of them. Security says, come hither, Winnie. And what happens then? And especially because I think Touchstone's next line is, we're all happy or going to be so, which may mean that something has just happened that makes it clear that somebody, probably Winnie, isn't happy. Who knows? But you can do quite a lot with that last scene. I think the very fact that Touchstone has been so resistant and so adamant about not believing any of this and so on, I think that's partly there. Well, it's partly there just to create some sort of conflict to deal with at the end, but also to make us aware that it is hard to believe in sudden repentance. But also it is you've mentioned the Beggar's Opera, and if you remember how the Beggar's Opera ends, it's a play within a play, and somebody asks the beggar how this thing is going to end, and he says, "Oh well, Macheath's going to be hanged, and everybody else is going to be transported or something." And then the player says, "No, we can't end like that. An opera's got to end happily." "Okay, well, just run and cry a reprieve," and then they do, and then everybody comes on very happy again. It's the most frank admission that what's happening on the stage is not what would happen in real life, and I think it's much the same here. Really, that's why it does go into a song.
Aliki, were you waving?
Well, I was just going to say that it's really a very theatrically literate show, and there's a lot of fun to be had for that, especially in a modern production where we really do love our meta-theatrical commentary, and that'll be really enjoyable to work with in exactly that last scene. But also throughout, there's so much theatre in this play.
Yeah, we're into final thoughts now, and so yeah, the general shape is really good. It's structurally very, very sound. It has the same problems that we've acknowledged throughout, is that there's a little too much of it, and some of the authors are more excessive than others, and I think there's a sort of evening of their outputs so that we get the best of the overall shape of it. But it's not a massive job to do. I think but what's nice about this play, because it's slightly too long, is it does give us options as to what kind of shape we want to give it, what emphasis, how dark do we want to go, how light do we want to go. This could be a very light play. You can run with all of this fairly lightly, because the actual even the stakes at the end don't do, how real do they actually feel. They're important because they give us a repentance there, but then we end up in song, and how many songs do we keep, and how much music is there throughout. It would have had effectively musical intervals between each act, potentially. So there's that sort of question as well. It's structured really nicely for a modern audience as well. There's a really nice place to put an interval and a really nice place to pick up the action after that interval, so it flows really well. And yeah, most of the problems we've had with the text are things we just go blue pencil, blue pencil, blue pencil, which is lovely. So final thoughts from the room. I'll go to Lois first. Any final thoughts from you?
Oh gosh, the play is so, in some ways, so subtle. There are quite a lot of points that are made in just one line and picked up later and so on. If I went on about all of that, we'd be here forever. I don't think actually that a lot of long speeches seem all that long. A lot of them are extremely clever and full of witty remarks and brilliant detail. you might cut for the sake of length. And there are a lot of things that might otherwise be irrelevant that a modern audience would love, like all that stuff about how wonderful Virginia is and how, it's full of gold and everything. And even I think that last speech about cuckolding, I mean, you might cut it. It comes actually from Rabelais. There's a scene in there where somebody, there's a great long thing where somebody's trying to decide whether to marry or not, and he's terrified of cuckolding, and they all talk to him about the pros and cons of it and provide these amazing arguments why cuckolding is a good thing. So that's where Touchstone is getting that speech. I don't know. I quite like most of that stuff, but a lot of it could easily go, obviously.
Dealer's choice to a degree, isn't it? And the context of where your production, how big it is. I'm still wrestling actually with how big the cast genuinely is. I mean, there are a lot of characters who have big roles, and then there's a lot of little characters who sort of footle about. So I'm not quite sure actually how small it could go as opposed to how big it could be. Which is an interesting question. Julie, do you have any final thoughts?
Oh, I'm still wondering about the decapitated horse. I didn't find any reference to that, and I mean, obviously, it's not riffing on The Godfather. But I mean,
coming off the horse head of sin, isn't it?
Oh yes, but I mean, it seemed like it's referring to something. And anyway, so I do like the cuckold speech. I mean, it's like, if you're tired of taking care of your wife, someone else will do it. Good. Yeah. Anyway, apart from that, I think sounds like it'd be really fun to put on. There's definitely parts that could be shaved just for keeping it moving. And but yeah, I other than that, I've really enjoyed it.
I think Lois may have.
I was going to tell you about the decapitated horse. I mean, it's got to do with this Mannington ballad that Quicksilver said is his model, and in fact, it is. I mean, I think it's the ballad is often printed. I think we're going to print it in the edition in the Marston thing, and all that's really known about it. I mean, Mannington was executed for being a highwayman, but I think everybody assumes from the ballad, which is the only evidence really, that he cut off his horse's head for not carrying him away from his pursuers or something. But then Quicksilver uses this in a terribly inept metaphor about how Mannington cut off the head of a horse. Right. Well, I should cut off the head of the horse of sin. And then I'm going to take virtue's purse. I will, like a highwayman, I will capture virtue. I mean, it's absolute rubbish as a comparison. Yeah.
Eric, any final thoughts?
I wasn't here for the first session, and I was a bit lost at the beginning of yesterday's session, the previous session. But I enjoyed this, even if it's kind of weird, like content-wise, all the anti-Semitic, misogyny stuff that we usually flag up. But yeah, I still kind of want to see like a pub crawl version of this, where you've got like you've got the underground map for like the pageants that you've set up for like the triumphs of 1630, 1620, so on and so forth. I kind of want to see a version of this done as a pageant around Cheapside. Although I've never been to Cheapside, so I don't. But yeah.
We could definitely do a walking tour of many of the sites. I mean, when you get to the river, it gets a bit more complicated. But we could charter a boat. I don't see any particular reason why we couldn't do that. But certainly, most of the locations are all very close. They're all orbiting Cheapside. That's where your goldsmiths are based, and the various other professions. It would be quite interesting to sort of look at where they are geographically and how they function as well. You could really go to town on that if you wanted to, as a sort of extension, because geography does matter. Less so, I think, than in Westward Ho, where geography really did matter, actually, knowing where you're going to a degree. Alex, any final thoughts?
The same qualifier as Eric. That obviously I missed the beginning session, but what I've read of it I love, for all those reasons I said yesterday about sort of ensemble comedies and sort of carry-on style playing and stuff. I I find Jonson stuff really interesting. I remember doing some of it at university, and part of the interest being in character expectations, that you end up with some characters who think they're in a different kind of play than they actually are, and then having the rug pulled under their feet. And I think that's also feeds into an interesting discussion, which is sort of touched upon obliquely, about actors and their input into the text. That, like you say, there's really nothing in that suggests, if you just look at the words, that Quicksilver isn't penitent. And we as postmodern actors love to kind of go, no, there's got to be more going on there. There's got to be more subtext. I want to put something under that. I find that a really interesting thing, that we can never go back to that room or that place where those actors were discussing that. I love the musicality of it. I think it would probably work brilliantly as a musical. I've done restoration comedies as musicals, and I think this got updated, didn't it, by Nahum Tate or someone who sort of updated it for the restoration. So
it keeps getting adapted actually on and off for the next 200 years or so. So it keeps popping up.
And I think shape-wise, it's got a great shape, and I'm with you. You just blue pen some stuff out of it, but I think that would be a really interesting discussion to have. Like Lois said, I think some of the Virginia stuff is hysterical. I think it was done somewhere in Virginia, wasn't it, a while ago recently, which presumably
yes,
lots of extra laughs.
Playhouse in Stanford,
because it's a place they're talking about. Yeah, but it's been one of my favorites so far. Oh God, and it was so much better than Cleopatra last week. But
Cleopatra is coming in about 6 months' time.
Low bar.
I think it's in because these are getting released completely out of order because of I'm doing all the Ho plays out in sequence, which we're not recording in sequence. So yes, at most plays are better than Cleopatra. A Queen of Egypt by Thomas May, as opposed to the other Cleopatra, which we did quite like. Samuel Daniels, that's quite enjoyable. Anyway, going off on a tangent. Alan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I must admit the musicals reference did ring bells with me, because that screeching U-turn halfway through Act 5 does feel very much like stage musicals. Oh, well, hold on, chaps, the bar's going to be shutting in half an hour. We better pull this damn thing to a close.
I'm sorry, I'm really going to...
What's it got to do with logic?
Go on this point, that it's not a screeching U-turn. They set it up from quite a distance. It's not a U-turn. It's a slow bend. I'm looking at the script. I can see it's not a screeching U-turn. Other plays do a screeching U-turn. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
Yeah, I still do not believe the repentance of the ne'er-do-wells, and it all feels like almost, oh God, we've got far too many words here. We better pull this thing together, and to hell with the logic.
Lynn, any final thoughts?
Like I said, I think the music helps us buy the repentance. It helps us, consent to that device. And yesterday I was saying, like, who is Quicksilver? First, he seems like a complete reprobate, and then he has this monologue in blank verse where he's like, oh, see, this is like the powers that be telling me, like, cheaters never prosper. But then the next thing he does is like, I know how to counterfeit. So, like, who is he? And I don't have as much trouble with Quicksilveriness today. It's just like he is all over the place. He just really hasn't found his center, and maybe what the play is asking us to believe is that he's finally, after like his stint in prison, has found his center. Today, I'm more interested in the question of how to make. Sorry. How to make the portrayal of Touchstone not show scenes, because he really feels like a different character in the first movement of the play, where he's really kind of stodgy and boring, and the stereotypical London merchant with a tagline that one would expect in the genre of city comedy, and then he just becomes really quite sarcastic and vindictive and cleverer in his cruelty than one would expect him to be. So how do you make that work? I mean, I think once you have one actor inhabiting that role, it will seem less inconsistent. But I would love to see a production where you can kind of see him grow, and by the end, he's kind of found a balance too between overly puritanical and really more merciful than is healthy. You know, I'd like to see him have a little bit of a growth arc as well.
Aliki, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's a great deal of fun to be had with this, and we should have it. I think we can also gain a lot of character richness and lovability and enjoyability from adding some more contemporary to us musical references in the music, which I know quite a lot of the music is lost for this, so that's easy enough to do. And, you know, just put in some song and dance routines, a bit of razzle dazzle, and that will really fill in some of our affection. And generally there's this knowingness in the text about theater, and our audience isn't necessarily that knowing about early modern theater. So I think we add some more references and textures and colors that are more accessible to the 21st century, and it'll just sing. I think it'll be brilliant.
Sarah, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Aliki. It's like, it's the most absurd thing, but it just kind of works. And I'm thinking about it, and I think the reason it works is because, weirdly, it has so many playwrights. It's reminding me of one of these kind of big gala performances that you get, you know, live from the Palladium, and we have all the famous people doing a turn, and it's like we've got all the playwrights, and they're all doing their stuff. And there's no real consistency between a lot of the sections, but somehow when you put it all together, I mean, and also thank God for all the ridiculous singing at the end, because that does really take it into a place where it's like, oh, this is great, let's put on a show, we can save this prison, you know. It's just like, it just gets so daft, it's wonderful. And yeah, it just reminds me of one of these just really big panto-esque style gala performances where everyone comes on and does their dazzling bit, and when you put all those dazzling bits together, it's just dazzling and fun and silly, and yeah, no, everyone's going to go home happy, I think. I mean, I have been critiquing this play over the last 3 days and saying, oh, this bit does not really match up with this bit, but actually in the end it really doesn't matter. I just like, for the blue pencil, I agree there has to be a lot of blue pencil, but I do want to put in a plea for that Sindefy and Gertrude scene, because I know it's not necessarily relevant to the plot, but I just think it's a fantastic scene and needs to stay. And the other thing I've been thinking is like, is there anywhere on the Thames where you could actually stage this? Where you could actually chuck the actors in? I don't think there is. I can't think of anywhere where you could actually chuck the actors in, because I would love to see them emerge.
I'd really like to see the union position on chucking your actors in.
I have a feeling it's not going to work. But even if you can't chuck them in the Thames, it's like they need to be absolutely dripping, I think, and covered in weed. And you know, you absolutely need to play up that storm scene.
Yeah, I mean, you don't actually have to make the actors physically that wet to get that across. You just have a wet look.
Just lose their hats.
You just have a different costume that is a sort of wet look effect, which you can do easily enough. You just have a substitute, and then you just wet their head, and that's all you need to do. You just need to dunk them in a bucket of water.
Yeah, you could do a lot as well with like modern jokes about the Thames. So like someone could come on covered with, a couple of people could come on covered in weed and mud and whatever, and then someone turns up with like a rusty bicycle over their shoulders or something.
They'd be very, very, very dirty, and all sorts of possible things. Anyway, we're running out of time. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yes, very, very quickly. I really liked Touchstone in this. I thought that he was like the star of the play. I feel that he really came across very, very beautifully. I love the line where he said, I will neither yield to the song of the siren, nor the voice of the hyena, the tears of the crocodile, nor the howling of the wolf. Avoid my habitation monsters. I thought that summed him up perfectly. I love what the play does with geography. I think it's just this really tight space geographically, but the title is Eastward Ho. And you've got a sense that it's telling you to like go further afield, but the play is not doing that. Instead, it's keeping all these very complicated characters in a very small geography, and then making them kind of like run around furiously doing different things. And I like the contrast we were talking about, the screeching U-turn and the slow bend. I thought it was somewhere between the two, because Quicksilver does have his repentance, but it depends on how closely you're following that plot line. It may come out of left of field for you if you're not really like focusing on what the friends and the prisoners are saying.
Well, to be fair, it's signposted at the beginning of Act 4, which we did at the end of yesterday. I mean, it's actually been coming a long, long time. I mean, you could argue security going a bit around the prisoner. That comes very, very quickly and is to a degree resolved. But Quicksilver's been set up for a long time.
I agree with everyone who said it was fun, and I agreed with Sarah when she was saying that it was it was like a ride, and it was like I feel like this is a real playgoer's play, and the writers really knew like, oh, we're going to do this, and we're going to definitely throw in some of this, and I feel like it was really written for people that like going to the theatre a lot. So I loved it. I thought it was great.
Lois, did you want to throw anything in before I close?
Oh, well, the one scene I'm sort of sorry we don't get is the one between Gertrude and Mildred. We don't need it in a way, because you can pretty well predict that Mildred will be nice and will forgive her sister. And, the two of them are speaking together to Touchstone, trying to talk him round. But because there has been a kind of development of Gertrude as well towards, she's forgiven her knight as well when she sees him again, and seems to be just as much in love with him in spite of the appalling way he's treated her. But I mean, there has been a lot of, I think, fairly subtle preparation. I mean, the other thing is when you read criticism on this play, it's always terribly negative about Golding and going on about what a prig he is. Whereas in fact, he's got some very witty lines, even in the first part of the play. And just his comment on Sir Petronel, the best I can say of him is, I know him not, which is pretty damning. And he is the one that resolves the whole play, really, by his stratagem, and he persuades Quicksilver to marry Sindefy, which I know some people object to forced marriage, but it does seem in the context of her story the right thing, and gets a dowry for her out of security.
I'm not familiar with the criticism of this at all, and that surprises me. Maybe it's not a very flattering reflection on me. He's kind of my favorite character.
Well, yeah, I think what happens is really just in the 60s and 70s, everything was so anti-authority, and we've got to like all the bad characters and hate all the good characters and show what free spirits we are. But
he's unflaggingly decent. He just always tries to do the right thing.
And
that makes him boring.
And not in a preachy way. I mean, and of course he does sort of do sort of slightly crazy things at the end, because he does tell all these lies, and he willingly gets himself put in prison and to solve everything, and that seems very commendable. Anyway, we have seriously run out of time. We're well over. So all that remains is to get out our boats and head next time northward ho. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. I remember my song of the golden shower.